Hello, everybody. Welcome to another amazing episode of Triple B Bearded Blur Brothers. I'm your boy, Big O.
And I'm Gary.
And I'm David.
Welcome in, welcome in.
Special guest for today.
All right. How y'all brothers feeling, man? How y'all doing on this Friday night or Friday evening?
David, you can go ahead and start.
Okay. I'm feeling great, man. I'm ready to talk about this new series that you got that we're actually teaching on, and I'm ready to get it started, man.
For sure.
Long weekend ahead of me.
Yeah, man.
Same. I'm doing pretty good myself. For those of you who are seeing this on Facebook, apologies for the delay on that. Was running into some technical difficulties, but we should be all good now. Yeah, I'm doing good. How about yourself, my brother?
You know what? I ain't got no complaints, man. It's Friday. I ain't get paid this Friday, but next week it's on, man. So I'm feeling good about that, man. Happy to see y'all.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank both of you for having me on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, definitely. It was a long time coming. We had talked about this for a few times recently, bringing you on and kind of just having some things to talk about. And with us doing this series that we're going to be calling Creating Compelling Character Series, with you being, a creator.
Did the audio go out?
For some reason my mic keeps getting kicked off. Don't know why that's happening, but
all good.
Should be good. Before we go any further though, David, just introduce yourself to the people.
Okay, so I'm David Greene, founder of Limelight Entertainment Studios. I'm also the only creator there right now, but the company was started in 2020 after the love of, guess what, Marvel Comics and DC, like everybody else. But I created series like Conquered Crowns, Amazons, The Equalizers, some kids content. Currently working on a mobile game. We got quite a few things that we're working on here at the studio, and we plan to have it launched later this year and next year.
Okay.
Nice. Love to hear it. Before we go any further, you have anything you want to add in and talk about before we jump into the series, or are you good to get started?
Man, I'm ready to get it rolling, man. You two guys are more of the authors rather than I am. I do a little bit of writing myself, so we're gonna learn from each other and just all put all our knowledge and gems on the table and giving people some good information.
Sounds good to me. So jumping into this, we're going to kind of get started with what the root or the basis of internal conflict stems around. And we kind of talked offline with this, but David, you call this the engine of the story. And I want you to kind of break that down for us and give us some information on that.
So, yeah, I love creating believable characters, and not just believable. I love creating characters that grip you in a story. Characters that are passionate about what they do to make you feel like, oh, this is either like a friend or this is somebody I know. And I even love implementing that same style in creating superheroes, because the worlds I create with superheroes, with the character conflicts and character bios, it make it seem like this is something that's very believable. And I try to stick to that formula. So the internal conflict is the engine behind all story. I'm gonna say it again. The internal conflict is the engine behind all story, and it really starts with that belief system. But we don't actually necessarily say that because it's easier to create that internal conflict and jump into the story right away. And for us as writers, we create these characters and we're so gung-ho and getting them up and going quick. You know, we want to tell what they look like, their eye color, all these things, what they can do. And those things are important, but they're not the most important. The internal is what's most important because that's what connects with the audience. That's what connects with the readers and the watchers. So the belief system is what determines the internal conflict, because it's only because, for example, if I believe in, let's say women's rights, and you know the Supreme Court and all these people are changing women's rights, then that creates that internal conflict with me because it's something that I believe in. Now, if I don't believe in it, it ain't gonna create that internal conflict because I don't care about it and I don't believe in it. So that's where that internal conflict comes from, that belief system. What do you believe in? What do your characters believe in?
Right.
So would you say that the internal conflict and the external conflict kind of go hand in hand?
Yeah, they feed off each other, because the internal conflict is only revealed based on the external conflicts you encounter in life. Same thing with your characters. You know, actually, let's go into the Avatar, The Last Airbender, which I think is one of the greatest series.
Yeah.
Especially when you talk about character development, because we've seen it all. We've seen elemental stuff all the time. You know, almost every anime show I watch is based on elements, but it's something different about this. And it ain't just because they can bend and they got to do the moves, the martial art moves to make their powers go. That's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, but it's that they have that to their characters. Yeah. So let's talk about Aang.
So that's actually the perfect jumping off point for that, because the series starts out with the monologue. I want to say it's by Aang, where he says, you know, the world was plunged into this war because the Fire Lord was trying to take over everything, and when the world needed him most, it was Katara. When the world needed him most, you know, the Avatar was nowhere to be found because he was stuck under the ocean, frozen. Well, that is literally telling us his internal conflict. You know, his internal conflict from jump is he was supposed to be the Avatar 100 years ago to prevent this war from happening. And because he never died, another Avatar never rose up, and the world never was able to receive the protection or the setup of the protection of the world from, you know, that type of evil, because he essentially hid for 100 years.
Right. And it goes back to, like you said, his whole belief system was he had that fear of, I don't want to be the Avatar, or I can't, you know. And then as you go on later in the series, you discover that it reveals that, oh, I can't really be a kid. I can't even play ball or air ball with these kids because I'm the Avatar. So it changed. He had that fear of his life changing as a kid, and then him having to be isolated just because he's the Avatar.
Right.
You know, you got to go do special training. You're special, and the kids gonna look at you different. And so he had that, it's like a lot of fear he had, which caused him to run away from his destiny. Yeah. Well, he thought he was running away. It just caught up to him.
Yeah, he tried.
Yeah. And even when you think about the decisions that he made were based off his belief system as a monk. He didn't want to kill people because that's not what monks did. You know, so that dictated every action he did throughout the whole series. You know, even the conflict of when he had you know, when Zuko presented killing his father, and he said, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you better, because my father gonna kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe in book 3 or season 3, like every other episode, they talked about how, you know, the only way you're going to be able to beat the Fire Lord is you have to kill him. You have to get to the point where you can kill him. And that was the driving force of that entire season 3 internal conflict, was him battling whether or not he should kill him or not. And then, you know, you got to see throughout the series in season 1, a lot of his conflict was, I don't want to be the Avatar. You know, I don't want to have to go to these levels of isolation, or I don't want to have to go to these levels of essentially leadership to be the Avatar that I'm supposed to be. And then season 2 was a lot of that same concept of, you know, I don't want to have to separate myself from the people that I've grown to care and love for to be able to protect them. And so that idea and that concept of that internal conflict really started to expand and grow with each and every season of the show. And that's what made the show so well written and so well received, because everything was expanded and the stakes were honestly raised each season and each episode, honestly.
Right. And I'm glad that you brought that. Oh, do you got anything to say? I don't want to cut you off.
Oh no, you good, man. I'm listening. I'm soaking this in. It's like, Gary, this is why I named the show what I named, because it's like, whenever I think of something, before I can say it, Gary always beats me to it. It happens every time.
And it's vice versa.
Right.
I'm glad Gary brought that up, because your character is just like you're a person. Your character is multi-level internal conflict. It's not just one internal conflict that just drives you all the time. But he started off with one internal conflict, and then he went to another internal conflict, but it was still building upon that main internal conflict of having to be the leader and really dismantling the Fire Lord. But then he started to build that internal conflict of relationship with Katara, and he started to fall in love, and then she didn't like him like that, and it was that internal conflict. So he had all of these other internal conflicts going on at the same time that he knew he had to do something about the Fire Lord.
Yeah, right.
And that's the same with all these characters. And so you should always make your character, you give them that main internal conflict, and there are going to be other little conflicts that drive side stories.
Yeah.
Yep. They write themselves.
Yeah.
That is facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we go to the next section of this topic, do either one of you have any examples of some good belief systems that drive internal conflict?
I going back to the Avatar, that part where Zuko told him, "You're gonna have to kill my father," and that belief system, that belief of monks don't kill, that's a clear belief system, because that's based off of I don't kill because I'm a monk. And so that drove that internal conflict of, well, what do I do now? I got to find another way, because everybody's depending on me. And so that drove the stakes of the show up, the stakes in his life that raised the consequences if he failed, and that raised his internal conflict. It made it so much bigger when he actually conquered his internal conflict.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, kind of switching characters, but similar morals. Batman, you know, like with the same belief system of not killing, but also wanting to deliver justice in the city of Gotham, and really holding true to those beliefs that I can bring justice to my city because I swore to be this city's protector, and I don't have to be a killer. I don't have to be a Joker. I don't have to be Mr. Freeze or things like that.
Yep.
you know, and like we've discussed off camera, you know, dealing with that childhood trauma, and that really got a hold of Bruce, and you know, was like a core system that really led him to become Batman. And it's like, you know, I can bring Gotham justice. I can get these criminals off the street. I can stop these masterminds, these evil geniuses, without killing them. I don't have to kill. You know, even though it might get a little brutal and kind of borderline on killing, but
you wish
you
he
know,
was dead after a while.
Right.
yeah,
But it's
yeah,
not killing them. Yeah.
right. Did you die? Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's
So,
like
yeah,
knocking somebody's tooth out and it's hanging by that one little piece. Oh, well,
Right.
you can still go to the dentist and get it put back in. I didn't knock it out. You know, what's that group that they trained with?
The League of Assassins.
League of Assassins. League of Assassins, and see, that's part of the conflict too. He was trained by League of Assassins, but he's not really, he doesn't share their belief system.
Exactly.
He still held on to what his parents, the belief system that his parents instilled in him. I'll take the the training to whoop somebody's tail from you, but I'm not going to kill. You know?
Right. I'm gonna get to that edge and I'm gonna skirt it real thin. But I'm not gonna cross it.
Right. So that's a good internal conflict right there too with Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. So moving on to the next topic, I want us to kind of touch on this a little bit more because we kind of touched on it a little bit, but why does internal conflict matter?
Woo. So internal conflict is, like, again, to reiterate, it's the engine of why somebody does something. It's as I like to tell other people, it's your inner man, your inner person, for everybody out there. But your inner person is what is in conflict. Right. And your inner person will dictate everything that you do. And your inner person will grow based on what you read or your beliefs can change. So that whole internal conflict, or inner person is what determines the inner conflict. It doesn't determine the external conflict, because external conflicts are something you can't control.
Right.
But your external conflicts are going to reveal your inner man and what your inner man is about. So that, that's why it's very important that people start with that in the questions that matter, which are at the bottom. Our section 4, excuse me, I'm looking at the screen, but our section 4, the questions that matter about building the internal character.
Right. So, I want to ask you a question real quick. I want you to give the people an insight that they may not have right now. So when you're watching a TV series, a movie, or reading a comic or a book or whatever, and you pick up on a character that has an internal battle or internal conflict, why does that become important to you?
I think for me personally, it boils down to relatability. I myself may not be a villain, like I can't go around with a magic gauntlet snapping people out of existence or anything like that, or beating people to a bloody pulp. But for me, it's the why behind it. I might not agree with the methods or the methodology or the ideas, but I may understand the why behind it, because it's essentially the catalyst that builds the story and builds that person. And it's like, why is Daredevil, or why is Matt Murdock Daredevil? Why is Peter Parker Spider-Man, or whatever the case may be? Their relatability really, it draws me in and it keeps it interesting, because it also makes you, as a reader, I find it also makes me question some of my own morals and some of my beliefs as far as, what would I do in this situation, because it's easy to ask somebody, when you're not in that situation, like, what would you do if you were in this scenario? Would you fight your way out of it? Would you run? It's easy to pick an answer when you're not in the situation, but when you are, your mind works a little bit differently, and it's that fight or flight response. So it's like, if you are a superpower being who you have a secret identity to protect for the sake of your loved ones, friends, family, etc., and you're cornered by, I don't know, a high school bully or something like that. It's like, do I flex on this dude and like knock him across the street? Probably not. I could, but I can bite the bullet or take the L real quick. Just
Right.
just to not give myself away, or injure this dude or whatever. And I think the why behind it is always the essential catalyst and just the driving factor to keep the story going, and knowing that it's just not I'm just doing this just because. Like, there's always a reason. It's never just I'm a hero because I feel like being a hero, or I'm a bad guy because I want to be a bad guy and nothing else. There's always something attached to that, for that person's why factor. So I always look for stuff like that. And I mean, if it looks cool or sounds cool, that's another thing too. But the why factor is like the key point in what are we here for? What's my purpose? What's my drive? What's my inspiration? What's my ultimate goal here? So when a character has that, I'm all the way reeled in.
Okay.
That's actually
I love
really
that
good.
answer. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, David.
Oh, I'm just saying I love that answer. I have this rule, well, not rule, but I have this saying where, can you hear me? Because I'm away from the microphone. I have this saying where everybody is an anti-hero, because nobody is cut, straight black, good. It's impossible. So everybody is an anti-hero. When you look at Superman, he was all this good he did. He didn't want to kill people, but when he got pushed to that point, it was a different Superman. You like, oh,
Everybody run.
Yeah, planet. I mean, people on other planets were scared. They were calling people from Yellow Lanterns and all type of stuff.
Yeah.
He was pushed to that point, and that's why I say everybody is an anti-hero, because even Captain America, Spider-Man, all of them, they would do the same thing if they were pushed to a point to where they had to do it.
Yeah.
It's just, that's not how we classify them. We classify them on, well, either did they kill somebody or they didn't kill somebody. If you kill somebody, even if it was an accident or something like that, you may be considered a villain. That's what made Killmonger so relatable, because I'm glad they did that too. They didn't just say, oh, well, he's a part of the tribes, and he started out in Wakanda, but they put him in somewhere relatable, and they made the story relatable. Like, oh, his father was sent over as a war dog on a mission. His father was killed. He stayed there, and he grew up like any other black kid in a low income area. So that was completely relatable. And I'm glad they made that change in the movie. And that's what the internal conflict on that was insane.
Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you brought that up, because his internal conflict was infectious, because whether people realize it or not, like, that was something that a lot of Wakanda had been dealing with in general, which is, providing resources and materials to other Black people across the world.
Right.
And
they were there too. Yeah.
Right. They were because of what happened with Claw. So Wakanda itself had an internal conflict. And then each individual character within the film had an internal conflict of, whether or not, the right thing to do is to keep the resources or to give it out to other people.
Right.
And then when Killmonger came, he kind of accentuated that in the character of T'Challa specifically, because T'Challa, he had visited the outside world plenty of times. He got to see the Avengers close up, and he got to see how they fought against each other due to what happened with Zemo, and him bringing that internal conflict in the Avengers. Right. And then he got to see how they reacted and how they responded and how they still eventually came back together. And I feel like that caused him to have a lot of internal conflict towards the end of that first Black Panther film, because it was like, okay, we can keep all our resources from people who need it to protect it from people who are going to abuse it, or we can share it and just work really hard to ensure that someone like Claw or someone like Killmonger doesn't get their hands on it.
Right.
Yeah. That's the internal conflict, in which that external conflict, there was no way he was going to be able to do that.
Right.
So which went back to, it was like a ping pong, like hitting the ball back and forth, because he knew he couldn't control that external conflict of who gets it and who doesn't, which then reflected back on, do I really do this decision? It makes that decision that much harder.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way that I was looking at internal conflict specifically with the film of Black Panther really made me start to think about how it really just pushes characters to develop. And that's like the biggest thing. That's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people enjoy like movies or books and things like that, because they don't want to see a character start out one way at the beginning of a story and then at the end of the story they're the same way. Which is why I personally didn't like the Flash movie, because he didn't really develop. At the beginning of the movie, he was, I want to save my dad from being in prison, and I want to save my mom. And then at the end of the movie, it was, I want to save my mom and I want to keep my dad from going to prison. He didn't change. Like nothing about him changed. He was still the same way.
Right.
Whereas, I look at a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy 3. It came out a few months beforehand. Yeah. And each one of the characters in that film had a character arc that allowed them to become completely different from where they were from the beginning of the film. And all of that was driven by internal conflict. Yeah. I'm going to only use one example, and then I'll let you two jump in on that. But Peter Quill had great character development in the story. He started out pining for Gamora and not really understanding where he fit in the grand scheme of things, because everything had changed. By the midway point of the film, he was starting to realize, hey, I can't keep being hung up on this woman that's not, really caring about me and who's different from who I was before. Yeah. But at the same time, he also had to deal with, how am I supposed to be a leader now? Because I don't know where I stand.
Yeah.
Right. And then come the end of the film, he's fully realized, okay, I can't really care about Gamora anymore. This isn't my Gamora. This isn't the one that I was in love with.
Yeah.
And then two, I can't be this leader anymore. I don't know who I am. I need to find out who I am. And so I need to leave this team, this comfort, so that I can find out who I am. That is internal conflict on a low level, in my opinion, but in a way where you can see the growth of the character, because we got to see him go from being this mopey, unserious person to, by the end of the film, he's a little bit more serious, but he's still more of himself as a character, without necessarily having the depression of losing the love of his life.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good example. And I like what you said about him essentially losing Gamora, because that's also another thing another aspect that really pushes internal conflict within a character is whenever they have something to lose, you
Mm-hmm.
know, whether it is a loved one or their home or just something special and near and dear to them. Also, I think of Thor in that regard too.
Yeah.
Even though Thor: Love and Thunder was what it was, you know, there
Mhm.
was a little bit of that internal conflict of losing pretty much everything. He lost his brother, he lost Heimdall, he lost Asgard, you know, he lost everything. And, you know, for a guy who's been, or a god rather, who's been around for, you know, hundreds or thousands of years, you know, he's seen a
Right.
lot, he's had a lot of experiences. He's been to, you know, we don't know how many other planets or universes or, you know, whatever the case may be, you know, but he'd never been in that vulnerable spot of having all of these things so near and dear to him, like just suddenly taken away.
Right.
And not to mention they were like back to back to back,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
You couldn't catch a
and
break.
he couldn't catch a break at all, you know. And on top of that, he still had to fight. He still had to go at Thanos. You know, he still had to establish a new Asgard, and you
Mm-hmm.
know, taking that personal time to figure out who he was outside of the mantle of responsibility that was laid upon him as, you know, Thor, God of Thunder. You know, it's like who really am I? Like what do I want in this life? You know, I've lived so much of my life being what my father wanted me to be or what my mother needed me to be. Who do I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he had that internal conflict of figuring that out as well as having to just start fresh, just having to start over,
Mhm.
you know, and yeah, sometimes it takes for a character to lose everything to really deal with that internal conflict within themselves because
Yep.
you got so many other things that you're dealing with. It's like I gotta be God of Thunder, I gotta be, you know, I gotta rule over Asgard, I gotta tap in with the Avengers, I gotta fight purple Bruce Willis Thanos over here. Uh, you know, I gotta get a new hammer. Oh, I now have a sister I didn't know squat about. You know, like you have all
Yeah.
these other things to think about, and all of that became undone like bit by bit. And it was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna take off from the whole superhero gig thing. I'm a, you know, go do a fourth installment on my life, call it Love and Thunder, you know, and deal with it that way.
Uh, Love and Thunder was it was funny. Um, it was different. You know, I especially when I seen gore, I expected a different movie, and I felt it was a little comical. But I I like Chris Hemsworth as Thor, and so I
Yeah,
enjoyed it for what it was.
right,
Yeah.
right.
That
I was
makes
like,
one of
you
us.
know, hey, whatever. Yeah, I was like, oh man.
Yeah, I tried. I
But
tried.
but if I had the money and I was shooting Thor, Love and Thunder. Now I did like Thor Jane. I did like her. To be
Yeah,
actually, I liked her more than Thor in that movie.
She was
And
much better.
I would have been like, I just take Thor out of it. I don't even care about him. Like
yeah,
you know, he was. They didn't lean in enough to her,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they
yeah,
should have. Because she came back and he should have really just been a side character. You know how people today are like, oh, these movies are so woke. The woman's the lead. In that movie, she should have been the lead. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
nah,
And she's a great example of internal conflict as well, because
Agreed.
yeah. Oh
and
man,
actually she's a great example of her external conflict really influencing her internal conflict.
yeah,
Exactly.
Because her dealing with cancer, and having to try to find ways to stay alive while also like being one of the greatest minds on earth. and then dealing with just the idea or the concept of using the hammer Mjolnir to keep herself alive, but finding out towards the end that it was actually accelerating her death, was just, to me, that was some of the best writing for the film, because it's just like it utilized a character's external issues and really pushed the internal aspect of it.
Right.
The goats were the MVP, though. James is cool. No, Malachi, I have to disagree. Those goats got really annoying really fast. After the third or fourth stream, I was like, yeah, take these guys off stream.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so with that being said, we've talked about how internal conflict is the engine of the story. We talked about how why internal conflict is important to a story. Yeah. Now let's talk about how to build internal conflict. So, David, give us some pointers, some steps on how to do that.
So we've kind of tapped into the idea of how to build these great characters already. And it really is you can approach it two different ways. You can start with building your character, building their beliefs, what they believe, what they will do, what they won't do. Or you can take the common approach of of desire versus fear, which builds that internal conflict. Now, you still can't get away from the belief system, so you still have to circle back around to that belief system and creating that character. Mm-hmm. But desire versus fear creates that instant internal conflict. What does your person want? Breaking Bad. Walter White, he was and we all know teachers sometimes, it's depending on where you're at, he wasn't getting paid enough money. So his desire was he wanted more money. That's an internal desire. He wanted more money to support his family.
Right.
The external, and it goes into the questions we'll ask later. But he wanted to support his family with money, which is an external desire. But the internal was he really wanted to make up for his past and what he didn't do in his past.
Yep.
Yeah. Part of his other internal conflict was he wanted to be alive. He wanted to feel like he was alive instead of going into a classroom every day and looking at the kids like, why am I even teaching this? Why am I doing this for this little bit of money?
What is it all
so
for?
He felt, what is this all for? He felt dead every day he went in there, and I can sympathize with him. I was a teacher 7 years, and kids automatically would go in and say, I don't know math, and this and that. So they automatically disclude themselves from actually learning.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about building that character, Walter White was a great example because there was no superpower. He was a common everyday person that you can teach, and that every person every person in the U.S. has to go through a teacher. And so this is somebody that really represents somebody most likely that as a teacher. And it put that, especially a chemistry teacher, he took his skills and said, okay, well, I need more money, and this is the way I'm going to do it.
Yep.
And so it created that desire of wanting more money, but he had that fear of, if I get caught, then I'm gonna get divorced. I could die. I can go to jail. My brother-in-law may catch me. And so he had that desire versus that fear. I want to be alive. I want that money. All these things. And so those two clash, and when they clash, and the more they clash, the bigger the explosion in the story.
Yeah. I was gonna go kind of a similar route, using America's favorite anime, Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
Our favorite topic.
But no, like because you have like the desire versus the fear, where the Saiyan race, they are this group of elite warriors who are trained for battle, destruction, you know, and ultimately domination over the entire galaxy. And but the difference is you have Vegeta, who is a Saiyan to his core. He's like, I'm the Prince of all Saiyans, and everybody will kneel to us, and all of that stuff. And then you've got Goku, who was sent to Earth for that, but he literally bumped his head and like undid all of that. And he was like, you know what? This is Earth. They got weird people here, and you know, these things that roll around on wheels. I think they're called cars. This is kind of cool. You know, like I want to protect this. I want to protect this world. He was given a family because, you know, he lost his family. So his motivation was completely undone to where it wasn't even really his desire to rule Earth. It was the Saiyans that was their ultimate goal, was to just dominate planets across the galaxy, and just be the most feared race in the universe. But Goku was the anomaly in that formula to where it was like, you know what? I don't like all this evil stuff. I'm gonna break the cycle. I'm gonna cut it loose right here, right now. I desire to protect the Earth, but my fear is that I may not always be strong enough for new threats. So you get Vegeta, and then you get Frieza and all the others, you know, they're after that, where their goal is to basically everybody's got the same thing. You know, they want to rule the planet, they want to be the strongest in the world or the universe. They have their own personal desires, but they have the fears, but they are so hell bent on the desires that the fears become minimal. And you know, they think they're untouchable, they think they're invincible. And then you get like Goku or his son Gohan, that they train, they come in, they wreck shop, they kill all that, and then it's like, why wasn't I strong enough? And then it's like, you know, you forgot like what you desired to do. It was almost doable, but you got so lost in that you let your guard down, and now you sitting here finna go to the spirit world looking crazy, you know, and you know that's the end for you. And not only that, I'm going to continue to train and protect this planet because that's my desire. I'm going to always continue to be stronger. I'm going to always protect my friends, my family, because there's always going to be a new threat. So I like that you said that, David, the desire versus the fear, because they balance each other. They're kind of one and the same. It's like that opposites attract kind of thing.
Right. It can be your desire versus fear. It can be your desire versus your belief system. And they're one and the same. You know, they're one and the same, because your belief system includes fear, includes your belief system includes your desires, your fears, your emotions, all of that stuff. Because just to sum up your belief system, it's your internal man and what you believe.
Exactly.
You know? So I'm glad that you brought up anime, because I feel that anime does a better job than American animation when it comes to showing conflict, character conflicts and character development. I can't really think of any American animations, maybe Justice League Unlimited, which is really good to me, but it still doesn't compare to a lot of animes when we talk about character development. You know, when I think the anime, they're not afraid to go to certain topics. They're not afraid to go to a lot of character, how should I say, character arcs, or just different things that American animation doesn't go to. With American animation, we constantly get superheroes, we don't get something like what is that? Demon Slayer and
Yeah.
we don't get things like that in American animation. You either get superheroes or you're going to get these cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that's part of the reason why the American comic books and things like that are failing, because 9 times out of 10 they're based on superheroes. And anime over here is dogging us. And I went to Walmart and it's nothing but anime in the front of the store when you walk in. By Viz Media, and you're like, well, dang, where's the comics at?
Right.
So,
yeah. There was a time I remember when you could find comics in a Walmart or a Target.
You sure could.
Even in like a convenience store, like a 7-Eleven or whatever. But now you don't see them anywhere. You have to go to a comic book store, or you can go to like a Barnes and Noble.
Right.
Outside of that, you won't see a comic anywhere.
Right. And all it is just adjusting the comic book to be more like an anime. Instead of doing like, I love doing superheroes, but there are times when I do something a little different. Okay, well, let me just write this this love story, and people love reading about that stuff. Let me write this Dune versus Beetle crossover or something like that, something different.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that I like about working with internal conflict specifically is the desire versus the belief system. I think of going back to Avatar real quick, the character of Zuko. He is kind of like the creme de la creme of internal conflict from that series, because his whole internal belief system was, I have to get my honor back and I have to prove to my father that I'm worthy. And to do that, all I have to do is capture the Avatar. Right. But as time goes on, as he continues to fail, and as he learns from his uncle, he starts to realize later in the series, okay, it's not about trying to get back in good graces with my father. It's more so about, how can I become, the best version of me and bring the world back together. And he finds out that he has to work with the Avatar to do that. And that is a direct conflict in regards to what his belief system was. And that causes him to struggle, specifically in season 3, because he starts to realize, what I want isn't what I really want. He gets everything he wants. He gets everything he's desired, but his belief system is still off, because his honor isn't restored. His honor is still broken because he hasn't done what he was actually meant to do. He's only done what he thought he wanted to do.
Yeah. Okay, and check this out. Remember when that conflict is shattered when Uncle Iroh tells him, oh, well, your mother's brother was the Avatar and he fought your grandfather. Yeah. And that's the struggle you have of good and evil, because now you have your mother's side who was good and who was trying to do good, but your father's side is evil. And here you are, you're trying to balance those two out like Anakin Skywalker. You you don't know what to do.
Right.
And you can tell from a kid, and that's funny about characters, male characters, and their fathers are around. Thor and his father, it's always they're trying to please their father and being made in the image of their father.
Right.
Living up to their father expectations. And that's what you have with Zuko. And he realizes, like you said, well, I have a choice because my mother's brother made a different choice. Right. So I don't have to make the same choice to be like my father and my grandfather.
Yeah.
So
the next thing I want us to kind of do is give a quick character study from what I believe, and David, you and I have talked about this offline quite a bit, but I believe this character is a really good example, and honestly a great example of internal conflict. And it comes from the most recent Marvel series, Secret Invasion. Now, we're not going to talk about the series itself. We're not going to go into the details on that, but we are going to talk about the character of Gravik and how great of a character he was in regards to having internal conflict. Otis, did you finish the series?
I'm just about done.
Okay.
I got pretty much like the last two episodes.
Okay. Well, we're gonna save you. We're gonna save you an hour. We're gonna save you an hour.
Fair enough. I will say,
that's 2 episodes right there because they 30 minutes.
yeah, because I don't want to ruin nothing for nobody. We won't do any spoilers, but I'm gonna let y'all kind of handle this one because I'm still kind of like I still got to catch up with it and everything like that.
That's fair. We're not gonna go into any spoilers. We'll just talk because honestly, like all his internal conflict is wrapped up within the first 4 episodes,
right?
Of the series. So yeah. So yeah, Dave, you can go ahead and kick us off with that one.
Okay, so I was just trying to open. There's 6 questions when anybody wants to build a character, not just a character, but a character with some depth to them. There's 6 questions that you want to answer, and those 6 questions are, and we will have a sheet for people to download so they can have these questions. But number 1, who are these characters or character?
Right.
2, what do they want? And what do they want has to be an internal desire as well as an external desire. As we mentioned earlier about Walter White, his internal desire was to be awake, but his external desire was to, I want to make money. And notice how, like you said, with the internal is something that you can't see. To be awake is something you can't see, but money is something you can handle, which helps you build to distinguish the two. Right. The third question you want to answer is, why do the characters want it? You know, that also deserves an internal desire and an external desire. Walter White, again, well, internally, he wanted to make up for his past, which is something you can't see. Externally, he wanted to provide for his family. The fourth question is, how did the character or characters go about getting it? Well, what did he do? He used his chemical skills and knowledge to cook meth, and he got mixed up with drug dealers, and that's how he went about making his money and feeling alive. You know, so he accomplished both things. He accomplished the internal conflict and his internal desire as well as his external desire. Right. Something like that. He was always on the edge, which made him feel awake because he was either running or he was pulling guns or he was doing something crazy. So he was awake then. And then the fifth question is, what stops these characters? And what stops Walter White in the series is, you know, family, the law, drug dealers. He was always coming up against one of those three, which presented those conflicts. The sixth question, you know, you want to answer is, what are the consequences or stakes for the character? And sometimes these don't have to be just like so high. With Walter White, it was divorce for him because divorce meant his marriage meant everything, which is part of the reason why he wanted to provide for his family. So him getting divorced, that was high stakes for him. Going to jail or dying, you know, because he wanted to make sure, and he was dying as well. I think he had cancer. So he wanted to make sure his family was good financially. So that raised the stakes drastically. But notice how that's something simple. And so you don't have to do something like off the charts in order to have these stakes, but it's something simple that your character can ascertain. Right. And then the seventh question, give your characters themes. The theme for Walter was, you know, love, greed, and his family. Simple things. So when you talk about Gravik, that's answering the first question of who is this character? Gravik, I was about to say a Kree.
A scroll.
A scroll from a different planet.
Right.
And what did he want? Internally, he wanted a home of his own.
Yep.
He wanted to go back, a home of his own. And externally, that's a good question. Externally, what did he really want externally?
So I thought about this. I think he wanted, like most of the scrolls were mentioning in the series, he wanted to be able to walk around in his own skin. He wanted to be able to walk around without having to blend in and act like anyone else.
Right. Which is something they constantly mention in the series. Actually, that's the key word to get in.
Yeah.
The key phrase, I mean.
Yeah. That is true.
So then when we go to the third question, though, we answered what did he want, but then why does he want this? And internally, I kind of felt like he didn't want to lose his identity. When you talk about being away from home and being in your own skin, he didn't want to lose his identity.
He wanted freedom of his identity.
Right.
Exactly. Who doesn't? Like you said, you want to be true to yourself. And that's when we talk about build characters, no matter whether he's green, purple, black, red, that character was something true to any human. You want to be yourself.
Nope.
So an external want or desire for him was it's something that I can think of would be he wanted his people to be together. And maybe y'all have something different on the external. Why did he want it?
I'm thinking of I want to say it was in episode 2 when they showed his backstory and how he came up under Fury and everything. And one of the things that they really talked about, or I felt like they tried to emphasize, was how he fought his way through the universe to get to Earth, and he saw his parents die in front of him.
Exactly.
And he got so angry and got so upset from that, and it kind of built up a hatred inside of him. So I feel like the reason why is because he was angry and upset for his parents dying.
And he felt like he couldn't do anything.
Right, because he was just a child.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, maybe he felt weak or inadequate because he couldn't do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the fourth question goes into how did he go about getting it?
Right.
How did he go about getting a home as well as becoming adequate?
Right.
External would be him getting the home, and then internal is him feeling adequate.
I would even put in, he put things in place to become the leader of the Skrulls. I think that was also in episode 2 where, he put things in place so that he was voted as the commander for the Skrull army, as well as an internal one was him hiding some important details about his real plan from the Skrulls. As I believe near the end of episode 4, they start to show or towards the beginning of episode 4, they show him really going forward with his plan, which was to give everyone powers and essentially decimate the Earth and get rid of all humans and stuff.
Yeah. And we even see where, oh, never mind, because you said you didn't watch them last 2. So, yeah.
I'm gonna catch up. We're gonna talk about it after this.
Yeah. But okay, so then I'm gonna skip this question 5 because it goes into what stops him.
Right.
And you only see that in in episode 6.
Yeah.
But pretty much we know it's one of them is Fury. This series really about Fury too. So, Fury is somebody who stops him,
Right.
or opposes him, or goes against him, and whoever else.
Yeah.
And then, what are the consequences or the stakes of his actions?
Now that's deep because this series really touches on a lot of political themes.
Yeah.
But I have to say the biggest stakes or the biggest consequences for his actions would have been World War III.
Yeah. Oh, matter of fact, sidebar, that other character, not Gravik, Gaia's dad, what's his name?
Talos,
yeah.
To me,
Talos.
To me, that was a bigger stake consequence in what he did in calling all of those scrolls to the earth. Because when they said there was 1 million scrolls, you're like, well, hold up, what?
Right.
Like that's more dangerous because now these people can be anybody.
Anybody, yeah.
And I hope Marvel plays into that more, further. Make Phase 5 like a secret invasion, and you don't know who is who. So
yeah.
That would have been better.
Yeah,
I think if they play into that along with the whole variants thing, that'll really make it interesting.
Yeah. Yep. So, and then the last question: what do you guys think his themes are? Let's give three themes.
Oh, that's a good one. I know one is identity.
Yeah, identity,
self-identity. That's definitely
power.
Yeah.
I would say power. Yeah.
I would say revenge.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah. I would definitely say revenge, or I guess kind of to tie into the self-identity, like self-worth, or like establishes some self-satisfactory level of self-worth for himself in the world, because he knows that he has his ultimatum and getting his revenge, and kind of establishing that like avenging his parents' death and things like that, and kind of going through the whatever it takes, whatever I need to do to the point where I feel like I've avenged my parents because I was not strong enough in that moment to save them like I wanted to. So now I'm gonna take this on full on to make up for that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I mean that's pretty much the 7 questions and building. So we went through and did that character study of Gravik, but we also went through the 7 questions that like the really important questions in building a character.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm dropping that sheet in there. That's what I was just looking at, but I'm getting that sheet in there. And what was our last thing?
Yeah, we'll make the sheet available for everyone to download. You'll be able to go to the Bearded Blur Brothers Facebook or YouTube page and kind of pick up the download from there.
Yeah.
But the last thing we kind of wanted to talk about, I recently came out with a comic called Brontide.
Are you able to pull that up? Like pull a picture of it up or anything?
Yeah, I should be able to. One moment. But we wanted to kind of do a quick discussion on Brontide and his internal conflict.
Yeah. And how you came, what was your process in coming up with that?
So, for those of you who do not know, David and I have been really working together for almost a year now. He's helped me with developing and creating a lot of the stories that I'm planning on releasing as comics. And in that process, I've taken a lot of notes from like what he has provided on this episode so far, and I applied a lot of it to Bronzehide. So, for those of you who do not know, Bronzehide is a story about the character of Bruce Adams, and his story really focuses on him having to overcome being kicked out and being a bum to starting the journey of becoming a hero.
Right.
And finally got a picture up, so I will share that now.
Okay.
All right. One. And boom. So this is Bronzehide. This is the cover for the story. It is available on Webtoons. If you are on Global Comics, it's available on Global Comics. So yeah, you can read it on there. And again, it just focuses on the development and growth of Bruce as he deals with a lot of external conflict. You know, he goes to a club and he gets thrown out because he's hitting on some other man's woman. Because of that, his parents decide, you know, it's time for him to learn a lesson, and they kick him out of his house or out of their house because he's a 30-something-year-old man living with his parents still.
Right.
Sound like some people are actually.
While doing that, he also learns from a lot of his friends that, you know, they don't believe he's trustworthy. You know, he's good for a fun time, but that's it. You know, he has to go on a journey of, you know, figuring out who he is and what his purpose is in the world. And in doing so, he runs into a cult, and things kind of start to go downhill from there. So the whole thought process with creating the character of Bruce, you know, we see, especially in the superhero genre, we see a lot of superhero characters or adult characters that have a lot of great qualities and people aspire to be like them, but you never really get to see like their development into a great character. And so what I wanted to do with the character of Bruce was give the people someone not to root for. You know, no one's going to root for someone who hits on another man's woman and doesn't really care. Someone who lives with his parents and doesn't even try to do anything with his life. And then someone who's, you know, untrustworthy. No one's going to really sit and try to root for this person.
Yeah.
But what people will root for is an underdog. And so what I wanted to do was, you know, make him kind of like one of the worst characters imaginable and deconstruct him, you know, sending him to that, to the cult and making him kind of see like there's some crazy stuff out here.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of the things that he's going to witness over the course of the entire series is really going to kind of force him to grow and change and become less selfish and less self-centered and become more about helping and providing protection for people.
Right.
Right. Now, what how did you, like, where did you come up with this character? Like, was it somebody that you kind of knew, or was it piece from here? Actually, what did you start with? Did you start with the internal conflict, or what did you start with?
So I started with the internal conflict. I knew when I was creating this character, I wanted him to be a bum. I wanted him to be a womanizer. I wanted him to be just extremely unlikable, because I wanted people to gravitate to him. And like we've talked about, having that internal conflict to really push the character and develop him into a character that someone will actually enjoy and love and root for was the main focus and the main purpose of creating him.
That's interesting to do it. Like you said, you worked backwards on that, because like you said, 9 times out of 10 of people are like, oh, well, why would I like this character? Because there's nothing to root for. Why should I care about him? But you quickly find out that it goes from an unlikable character to a likable character, because now you're playing upon and that's the other thing. You play upon the feelings of the viewer or the reader.
Yep.
Yeah. Because this is a cult. There are plenty of cults out there, and these are things that people will come across and they hear about and things like that. And you're like, well, it kind of puts you in the mindset of, if you've never been a part of a cult or anything like that, you're like, oh, well, what's going on here? Let me see what's going to go on with this character. So,
yeah,
I think that's good.
I like that you made him unlikable, because it's like one of those things. Like, I don't care what nobody say. We all, to a degree, we like mess. We like drama. We're magnetized to it. Like, we all like a little bit of trash TV, where it's like, man, this is crazy. I'm gonna keep watching though. What's going on? Tune in. So I did like that you made them unlikable. Because nobody, like you said earlier, not every story should have like the Boy Scout or the Golden Standard character. It's always good to switch it up, and I can see the vision of where he's gonna become that underdog, and it's like, man, you still trash, bro. But I'm gonna keep reading to see, do you get worse? Do you ever learn a lesson? Do you get better from here? Do you grow? I really like that, because I was I was reading and I was like, man, I know, like, because I know some people like this dude. Like, I ain't gonna shout out nobody's name. I'm their business in their area. I ain't gonna put it in the street, but I was just like, man, this sounds like way too many people I know. Like, same situation, like hitting on another man's woman. It's like, bruh, like, have you no shame? Apparently you don't.
None at all.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the things that, like David mentioned earlier, about everyone is kind of like an anti-hero, with that internal conflict. Because when you like really sit and think about it, most of the characters that are actually intriguing or interesting, they're not the ones that do everything right the first time.
Yeah,
exactly.
I recently actually started watching One Punch Man with my girlfriend, and I never thought I would like an anime like that, but One Punch Man is really interesting because he can beat and resolve any conflict with one hit. But the way that they write the story and the way that they have everything done, it works in a way where it's not boring. He doesn't come off as a boring character because the way that he handles the external conflicts. And then they gave him an internal conflict of, well, I wanted to become stronger. I wanted to become stronger than anyone else because he got beat up one time, and now he's like unable to be stopped. And so he's trying to find enjoyment and joy from fighting monsters and stuff, but he can beat them all with one hit. So it's almost boring for him. So I like that as well, because like it doesn't, creating internal conflict doesn't have to be just one way. You know, there's multiple different ways of doing it. There's multiple different aspects and avenues, and essentially perfecting it.
Right. Yeah. It fits whatever story that you have, it fits that story.
Right. It does.
You know. Yep.
So
I tried One Punch.
It's pretty
I'll
good.
finish it one day. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I tried watching Attack on Titan, and I don't think I'm ever going to finish that. So
yeah, that's one of them ones my girlfriend swears by, and I'm like, I believe you. I believe that it's good, but
right.
I don't know.
It's good for those who like it, you know.
Who enjoy it. Yeah.
You know, my friend told me about it, and I watched it. Actually, I think I only watched the movie that was on Netflix, and I said, you know, but it was, and we go back to what we said earlier about how anime is not afraid to go into topics that Americans won't go near.
Yeah.
So if I remember correctly, Attack on Titans is like a God-centered story, right? Of the gods, and to me, like it's like, I ain't gonna say it, but we get so much of that the Greek god stuff from everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't get stuff like from other groups of people.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, from other mythologies. It's just always the Greek gods. And so, I mean, it's cool, you know. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ain't gonna beat a dead horse, but it's cool.
Yeah.
You're
right on that.
Some anime, man. I feel like you two, like, as the creatives that you are, I feel like there's some anime out there that I think you would like, but the issue is that there are so many to choose from, and there's so many different like styles, like story styles, art styles, themes, and things like that. Because like I have a friend of mine who has really been hellaciously suggesting One Piece to me, and I'm just like, bro,
don't do it.
I don't have
don't do it.
Me. I don't have it. I don't. I'm a patient guy. I swear I am, but I don't have the patience. I'm not that dedicated to, 1,000+ episodes. Like I don't have it in me. I really don't.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, the art style is not my cup of tea. I like the premise of it with the pirates and all that, but it's not. It doesn't like reel me in to the point where I'm just like, bruh, like I gotta watch One Piece, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
this is it.
Yeah, like I don't have
that DBZ.
I swear.
Yeah.
So, man. We got to do an episode where we like maybe try some anime stuff out or whatever. Like, because my attention span is short, so I would suggest for you guys like something that's like a good 4 seasons max. You know, not where it's like, all right, in the 27th season of One Piece crosses over with Dragon Ball Z / One Punch Man. No, I ain't gonna do that. It sounds good, but I'll get somebody else to do it.
Yeah. On Netflix they had, it goes back into what we talk about, different topics and genres.
Yeah.
And they got anime just has its own section. Like you don't see nothing like that on Netflix for American stuff. You
really don't, no.
And when you go through the anime stuff, you're like, oh, a basketball series in anime?
Yeah.
Like, and so I started watching, and I was like, oh, you mean it was a little boring to me, but it was just the fact that they pulled this off and people are watching this, and I'm like, well, why aren't we doing this stuff?
Right.
You know, well, partly because Hollywood, when we're creators, Hollywood won't take it, but they'll take it from them, but they won't take our stuff, and it just doesn't make sense, and they wonder why they're failing. You know, but I digress.
So with that said, our next episode that we're gonna do on the BBB, we're gonna be talking about the difference between internal and external conflict. We're going to really do a deep dive into that and how that is established and how that is executed. Yeah. And give some examples of the difference between internal and external conflict. So definitely everyone who's tune in next week or for the next episode where we talk about that, going deep into our creating compelling characters series. With that said, David, let the people know where they can follow you, get more of your work, and keep up with what's going on at Limelight.
Simply follow me at I want to build my YouTube channel, so YouTube at Limelight Universe. Facebook is Limelight Comics. Instagram is Limelight Comics. So I tried to keep it universal and similar. So, it's different from platform. I mean, the same from platform to platform, but YouTube was a little different. So,
gotcha.
If anything, follow my YouTube. Gotta get to that 1,000 subscribers.
What do you have coming up? What you got what you working on?
I just finished the Equalizer novel, but that's more so a middle grades book. But I think that other people will enjoy it. It is a little bit of a slow burn because I went into there, and that's what the novels are for. It gives you more of that slow burn, and it gives you that in-depth character development that you can't, or that you don't want to see sometimes in animation. And I know that just because when I was pitching it to different studios, they were like, no, just skip the the origin. We don't want no origin. You can do that second season or something like that. Just get straight to the action. So that's what the novel's about, the whole origin story, because it's fun and it's in the process of being edited, and then it'll go into the process of getting the art added to certain pages.
Nice.
Other than that, we are working on a mobile game, and pending details. I'll come out with more details later, but
nice.
We do have a TCG game called Mangeki, which is based off the anime that I created to be similar to like a Pokemon inspired anime.
Yeah, nice.
So we have several projects going on, and some of them I'm pretty sure I can't remember right now, but I have some other stuff going on. So that's what you see all on the board, and that's what the board is about. So
nice. Yeah, everyone who's watching, give him a follow, keep up to date with what he's doing. If you haven't read or purchased the Conquered Crowns book, check it out. You can find it on the website, limelightcomics.com, I believe, right?
That site is going through an overhaul, so it will be up at the beginning of August. Gotcha. At least the first week, I should say. Yeah.
Right. Perfect. So yeah, check it out. Get that book. And until next time, this has been the BBB podcast. I am your boy, Gary.
Big O.
And Dave.
And y'all have a good one.
Peace.
Peace.